This is a previously recorded Best of the OhioRAAM show.
Let's go down to Tennessee. Are you in Knoxville or are you in Oak Ridge? I never know.
I grew up in Oak Ridge and worked at Oak Ridge National Laboratory for about 30 years. And
Wow,
I live in Knoxville. I've lived in Knoxville for the last few years. We're only about 15 miles apart.
Yeah, beautiful area.
Hey, Gerry, I'm sure you get kidded about this, but when you turn the lights out, do you glow?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, something that may account for my sparkling personality is the fact that when I was a child, I used to go wading in the East Fork of Poplar Creek. It's world renowned as one of the most notoriously contaminated creeks in the world. I was wading in it right where it came out of the Y-12 weapons plant as a, like an eight-year-old exploring in fines, sediments and fines up to my knees that where I recall is yellow and silvery. There was a lot of mercury in there, as well as a lot of radionucleotides. That was one of my playgrounds. And I'm amazed that my legs, they still support hair even.
Well, maybe that's where you get all that energy.
Well, it may be.
And your longevity of 75 years young. Yes.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I think it's also possibly a good excuse for not doing nearly as well as I would have liked in some of the races and records.
It's always good to have an excuse, isn't it?
Oh, yes. Excuses are critical to life. Really.
Yes.
Well,
while we're talking about Oak Ridge, there's one thing I have to mention. I forget in one of the books I read about it, when they were building it, some of the old hill people down there was watching this going on, and it says, I never saw a plant like that where everything goes in and nothing comes out.
Yeah. That's just awesome. About right. Well, I didn't come out for 30 years. I came full circle eventually. I went back as a researcher, and I was doing collecting fish and other organisms from that same creek 40 years or more later.
That's amazing.
Well, Greg Zuber was in here a little while ago, and Brent Williams is watching too.
Yeah.
And you're crew chief and mechanic. Glad to have you.
Yes, definitely. He says you're in trouble if you mess up.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Go ahead,
okay, just to start off, what got you into cycling, and kind of what age did you start cycling?
Well, as a child, of course, I did just ordinary recreational cycling like almost all people did. Mm-hmm. But then I was a distance runner for many, many years and a speed hiker in the mountains and some mountaineering. I wrecked my knee, had arthroscopic knee surgery, and the surgeon suggested I not run anymore. And I asked him, well, what about cycling? I've always wanted to try that and thought it would be really fun. But when I was on the track team at UT, for example, it was extremely dangerous to ride here in East Tennessee. There was no respect for cyclists at all. And when you were running, you can always just jump right off the road. If you jump off on a bike, you're in trouble. Mm-hmm. So I picked up cycling at age basically 61, 2006, and did my first ultracycling event, the Sebring 12-hour, which was a huge jump from not doing anything. I did my first century a week before.
That's a tremendous accomplishment to do that.
And I was amazed. I finished very high, one of the highest. There's only one or two 30-somethings that beat me, and I was 61. And so, well, I was very pleased, but did I suffer after that? Because I really wasn't ready for a 12-hour, and we couldn't find a place. Daytona race was going on, all kinds of things. We had to drive all through the night, and I was just dying. My legs were about to fall off. So that was too big of a jump from almost zero to a 12-hour race.
Wow.
But it got me interested in. Also, it has been I was looking for something to help with my depression. I've had major depression most of my life. And I mean, it's been diagnosed as such. And this, I saw as a gift from God, something to, when you're riding, it's real hard to be depressed.
Exactly.
And,
I totally agree with you.
Even when you're into the night in a 24-hour race, you may be suffering immensely, but you don't really get depressed during that time.
Exactly. Nothing like a good bike ride.
Yeah. So it's been a real blessing for me. I thank my God and Savior for that.
Awesome. I know you hold a tremendous amount of world records. Do you know the exact count by chance?
Well, it depends on what you call a world record. You know, crossing Alaska, for example, is I've got the World Ultracycling Association record for that.
Okay.
But I don't know that I'd call it a world record because it's not repeatable anywhere else in the world. You know, someone in Moscow can't go out and cross Alaska, and they have to go to Alaska to do it.
Right.
So I call them World Ultracycling Association records.
Okay.
And in one sense, it is a world record because so far it's the fastest recorded. But my total of world records and state, country, and capital to capital records is about 126 or 7.
That is amazing.
And, I never dreamed when I did my very first record attempt across Tennessee, the short way, 121 miles. I thought, I'm going to do that, and then I'll do something else. But I got kind of hooked on records. For a long time, I focused on records and not so much on racing. But I still had a lot of fun racing when I could fit it in.
Yeah, and I think your titanium light speed holds a record for being in the most records.
It does. I mean, really, I bought that in 2005. And
are you still riding that thing, Gerry?
Yes. Of my 126 records, 122 of them are on that bike.
That is amazing.
Now, there's a few of the events, like when I crossed Alaska, I had to switch to a mountain bike for the last 450 miles on that famous Dalton Highway, the Ice Truckers Highway.
Yes.
And that's mostly mud, cobble, gravel. So I definitely had to use a mountain bike for the last 415 miles.
That is amazing.
But and it has started to, I think my last 24-hour race this summer, I had some really scary sounds and vibrations coming from the bike when I was hurtling down at even 35 miles an hour. And I had to stop several times trying to figure out what it was. And it definitely wasn't the wheels. So there's something in the headset.
Yeah.
I don't know what, but it's got over 80,000 miles on it. So maybe
tremendous.
It's time to.
Gerry, how many parts are on it now that you had on it when you first rode it?
The frame and the fork. Actually, I exchanged the fork after 1,000 miles. West Bike here in Knoxville. There was something a little bit wrong with the front fork, so they changed that out after 1,000 miles. So that front fork has really probably over 80,000 miles on it. And that's gives you pause when you're hurtling down at 50 miles an hour. Really steep. Like when I was going down in Israel, the Jordan River Valley Rift Valley to the Sea of Galilee. It's a 600-mile, pretty steep drop, and it was over 100 degrees, and I kept thinking about that front end, and I had rim brakes. I'm still not fond of disc brakes, but I thought of that over 100 degrees. I'm going 50 miles an hour, and I really was going that fast because I was afraid to touch the brakes too much and blow off the tires.
Wow! How many saddles have you gone through?
Probably, well, I've got about 8 or 10 saddles. Some of them have probably 15,000, 20,000 miles on them, and some of them not so much. I haven't thrown away almost any saddle.
That's amazing.
Every now and then, I'm a believer in long rides, in changing out saddles and bikes now and then.
Wow, okay.
I feel like subtle changes in geometry and subtle changes in the shape of the saddle help me to prevent saddle sores and other repetitive use injuries.
Gotcha.
I know that most people don't believe that. They believe that everything's got to be dialed into the micron.
Right.
And you never change anything. It hasn't, for me, it's been better to change things out now and then. Just like changing your shorts after 12
Exactly,
hours.
yes, definitely. You mentioned Israel. How many countries have you ridden in and hold records in?
Well, of course, I hold records in the U.S. and Canada, but not crossing of those countries. And I've done a couple of crossing records in New Zealand, the North and the South Island, the short way, not
Okay, gotcha. Right.
1,800 mile or whatever it was. I thought of doing that. I don't think I will now that she's done it. I couldn't touch it. But I've done that, and you might notice a focus on small countries: New Zealand, Panama.
Okay.
But that was a challenge because even though it's only 55 miles each way, after all, you're going from the Pacific to the Atlantic and back, 115 miles maybe. But I went from 30s and 40s here in March to close to 100 degrees and very high humidity overnight.
Yeah.
And I knew I was going to be doing that. Anytime you do it, you're going to be having a change.
Right.
But it was, I know my Panamanian guide, and he was my official and and my crew chief. They indicated they probably wouldn't be ever doing this again. And I had to get a special waiver from Panama. I had to call Drew Clark of the Ultra Marathon Cycling Association and ask for permission to roll through the stop signs.
Wow.
Because my official said in Panama, if you stop at stop signs, unless there's a reason like a semi truck is coming across, you'll get rear-ended, maybe very high speed rear-end.
Ooh.
So I ended up having to roll through stop signs with uniformed policemen with automatic weapons and their utilities, camouflage utilities, staring right at me. And I had to go right through. It was a little nerve-wracking at first, but I got used to it in a hurry.
Wow. That's amazing. Sounds like you've lived the bicycle dream with all the rides you've done.
Oh, it's seeing the places I've seen at a pace where not 70 or 80 miles an hour on the interstate, but seeing places from secondary roads and sometimes very primitive roads at anywhere from 3 to 50 miles an hour. You see and smell and hear a lot more that's going on in the world.
Gotcha.
That's a wonderful aspect. The other is all the wonderful people you meet. When you have to recruit crew and officials, most of them perfect strangers. Yeah, there's a lot of bonding goes on in anywhere from a few hours to a few days.
And the trust you have to build with those people is
yeah.
also amazing.
Yeah,
tremendous. Do you have any upcoming plans for anything major that you want to talk about?
Oh, I have, and I'm not sure I want to talk about them. I don't want to get scooped because I'm not.
Gotcha.
I'm 75 years old, and I'm not a strong rider compared to Gerry. Of course, he's passed away, but
yes,
all of
good friend. Yeah,
the elite young guys and gals. So I've been trying for 2 or 3 years to do something really big. And something I've lost my parents in the last year and a half, both my parents.
Sorry about to hear that.
Thank you. And then this pandemic.
Yes.
But before I pass on or have to retire from injuries or whatever, I'd like to do 1 or 2 big things.
Well, awesome.
Or attempt them.
We'll be here to follow you for sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We will look forward to that.
Well, I want to hear about this question about your wife dated Elvis Presley.
Oh, yeah. How did you ever hear that? Yeah, she.
Well, if you look down there,
she was a world-class. She was a world-class.
You got friends talking about you.
She was a world-class acrobat, and she's won several world championships in her age class in marathon, half marathon, track, 800 meters even, at the World Senior Games. But she was a world-class acrobat and equilibrist and gymnast. So she and her parents had this famous act And they were, well, they like to say that Elvis Presley fronted for them, but they opened the show a lot of times. And Elvis Presley used to hide in her dressing room after the show because all these incredibly crazy gals were hunting for him.
Mm-hmm.
So he would hide in her dressing room, and they talked, and they got to know each other a little bit. And so they dated casually, often with his Bill Black, and the others would be along too. So
the entourage, yes.
Yeah. But she liked him. She said he was a gentleman, all-American gentleman.
That is great. It's a great story.
As was his parents, or his father.
Yes.
So she actually got to know a lot of people that were particularly celebrities at that time. She had Duke Ellington playing her intro that she wrote for her act.
Wow.
Which is pretty remarkable when you think about one of the greatest composers and musicians of all time, American musicians of all time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's, you're talking about not wanting to tell. I had a different approach, Gerry.
Mm-hmm.
I would tell everybody I was going to do something, so I was trapped into having to do it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've been there, too, in that way, because I've often broadcast what I was going to do, and I was really nervous because I have never gone into any of these like some that say, I'm going to do it. I know I'm going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not wired that way. I'm going to do the best I can and hope for the best. But I know there's too many things that can go wrong.
Definitely. Yes.
Even just a saddle sore can wipe you out, on a long ride.
One of our watchers, Katie Ford, is asking, which record are you most proud of?
That's a good question. I think Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
That was difficult. I almost got killed.
Ooh.
One thing that's scary is on the Dalton Highway. It's raining most of the time. It's mud. I mean, slippery stuff. It's not bad. It's not deep where your wheel's going to grind into the mud.
Right.
You go around a tight turn, and there's one of these 80,000-pound tractor trailer trucks with a trailer coming on the inside of that curve, and you're going on the outside, and you just think, and they know how to drive, but it's still scary when they're coming at high speed, and you're going uphill on the outside of the turn, and you think all it takes is a little bit of hydroplaning on that mud.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what my closest call was the grizzly bear that took a big interest in me, and my crew and officials just happened to be, they must have stopped for a restroom break or something.
Mm-hmm.
I was alone. I was barreling down about 40 miles an hour on one of the few paved places, probably a test strip.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly there's a grizzly bear and crossing the road in front of me, probably 100 yards down. And I thinking, gosh, he stopped and he looked at me. He started looking at me. He started walking up. And I decided, I was thinking, I'll blow by him at 40 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, all those things I've seen on National Geographic of those grizzlies snatching salmon out of the river, it'd be the same thing. And so he kept coming up, and I knew there was no good reason for him to come up except he saw me as dinner. And I was thinking I was going to get off and hold the bike in front of me because I would have been going 3 miles an hour up that hill.
Yes.
Or maybe 20 miles an hour for about 5 seconds. And I waited and waited as he got closer and closer, and then the cavalry came over the hill. I've never been so thankful in my life.
Wow,
they saw what was happening. They raced down, threw the bike down, jumped in the car, and that poor grizzly looked so hangdog. I mean, he just literally hung his head and just kind of ambled off into the understory. I got out, and I got on the opposite side of the car, got on the bike, and they rode interference for the next 100 yards or so until I could safely race away from that situation.
Yeah.
The closest call I had, though, was a moose after I had finished and was cleaning my bikes. Big mama moose straight at me. I thought it was the end. I've never seen such a glint in the eyes of a moose, and the sounds it was making as it thundered straight at me, and I took off in 90-degree angle, and it bore away. The only thing I can figure there was a calf.
Yep.
I was between her and her calf.
Gotcha.
But,
wow. Well, it gives me
At
new
what
respect.
time
I
of-
worry about dogs, when we're riding.
Oh, I've had
dogs are nothing now.
well, dogs have are the only animals that have sent me to the hospital more than once.
wow.
I mean, twice. I've
Yeah.
been, in almost 1 year span, two different incidences. Dogs forced me right over the handlebars, landing really hard on the road. And I remember the squeal of tires as cars tried to brake, and because I landed in the middle of the road. It was really frightening, and had some severe injuries, not terribly severe, but concussions and dislocations and separations and bruised ribs, all that kind of stuff that really make you, for a while, you're not sure you'll ever get on a bike again.
Gerry, I have a tire pump in my garage out here that is bent. That a dog got hold of my leg and wouldn't let go.
Oh my gosh!
And I whipped the tire pump off and whacked him a good one, and I bent my pump. So I kept that as a souvenir. That's my dog story, and I'm sticking to
Oh,
it.
I've
good.
never heard
Boy,
that
that's
one.
a
That's
good one.
awesome.
That's a good one. I had one, 3 pit bulls
Ooh.
bother me a lot when I was doing some record attempts on the White Oak Loop in North Carolina. It's real rural, and on 3 of the 4 sides of this 20-mile loop, there was a pit bull or a pit bull mix on every one of them, and I just was holding my breath. And finally, one of them really came silent attack. That means they're really dead serious.
Yeah.
And I remember moving my right leg from the 9 o'clock position to the 3 o'clock position just as he slammed into my rear wheel.
Oh.
And one of my crew members is a licensed firearm carrier. And we had a council of war, and we had decided, I know this isn't woke or PC, but if that dog had come after us again, we were going to blow it away.
Yeah.
I mean, it's better than being torn to pieces.
Oh, definitely. And they're a breed that they'll
This
hang
was
on
a
to you
pure,
and tear you
looked
up.
like a purebred. This one, some of the others were mixed breed, but they were very scary as well.
Wow.
John wants to know if you ever got more than 4 hours sleep before beginning an event. He apparently knows something.
No, this is a terrible thing. I cannot. It's a character flaw. I'm so disorganized now, especially since these concussions, that I end up all night virtually trying to get everything ready. And of course, when you're doing one of these record attempts, you're also trying to ride herd on a team of wonderful people, but some of them are having trouble getting registered. They have to take an exam and sign waivers, get everything in before the race, before the record attempt starts. So I'm always trying to deal with all of these different matters, and I'm not very good at it. So I often just say, okay, I'm going to get 1 hour or 2 hours of sleep, and then I got to get up for the race. And it's a terrible thing. I mean, especially if you're doing a 24-hour or something. You're basically going maybe 30 or 40 hours with 1 hour or 2 hours of sleep. I'm embarrassed to confess that, but that's just a fact of life, and maybe some of my fellow ultracyclists will be more understanding of mine.
Gerry, you're a delight.
Yes, amazing.
Well, I owe it all to my crews and officials that have, and my parents, the way they raised me. But I thank God that He's given me this opportunity, and that the World Ultracycling Association for giving me these opportunities. It's been a great organization.
Right. Thank you for being with us,
Well,
Gerry.
thank you.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
It's a pleasure to meet you all, and it was an honor.
Yeah, I think the last time we saw one another was probably up at Calvin's Challenge. I expect several years ago, a race of blessed memory, and so forth. Gerry, we've got a little Latin send-off here for you, if I can make it happen. So You've done this. I haven't.
There you go.
I'm going to make it work.
You are. Awesome.
Oh.
Okay, with that little Latin beat,
There you
Gerry,
go.
it's
Love
been
it.
great having you.
Yes.
Thank you, and thanks again, Jim,
Thank
for
you,
your
Lee.
help.
This is Gregory Zuber, thanking you for watching and sharing.
Music by Kevin MacLeod.